Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Simgot EA1000, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Simgot for providing the EA1000 for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Simgot, you rock. Alright, so the Simgot EA1000, this will set you back $220 from your bank account, and it has a 10mm dynamic driver with a passive radiator, and with a SPGDP or a sputter deposition purple gold diaphragm. 16 ohms of impedance, 127 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 10 Hz to 50 kHz. The Simgot EA1000 comes in this purple box, and it says Fermat's last theorem. I'm not a science or a math person, so I have no idea what that's about. But anyways, there you go. Purple. Has some cool lettering on it, and then you get some specs on the back. Inside is nothing special, so let's move on to show you what the accessories are. Alright, so the accessories, you get this little carrying tray of tips, small, medium, and large on both sides. As you can see, I'm using the small ones, and the tips appear to be the same tip on both sides of the tray. Didn't notice a difference fit-wise or sound-wise. Also get a little metal plate that says Simgot in the middle that has your alternative filters. You have the gold one and the black one. The red filter is pre-installed. And then you get a little carrying case, which is hard shell. Snaps with a magnet. It says Simgot here, and then on the back side it says Salute to Art and Science. On the inside, you have an area to hold some accessories, and then plenty of room for your IEMs to sit. And underneath that, there's a little pocket. Very nice little case. Alright, so the EA1000. They are an attractive IEM. You get this white faceplate and a metal body. There's your passive radiator right there. And then you have a stepped up angle, rather aggressive angle for the nozzle, and fairly long. It's a little bit flat back here, but because of the step up, it fits in the ear fairly well. And of course, those nozzles just spin off. Be careful, they do go flying off rather easily, and they can be a little bit tricky to line up when putting back on. So take a deep breath and be patient while you do it, and they'll go on with no problems. Overall, this shell is nicely built. I do like that it's a glossy metal, and it just looks attractive, and for $220 it feels appropriate for its price point. Isolation of outside noises is pretty good as well. I find that they're probably about 60% of outside noises being blocked when you have a good seal. Things like louder things like around the house, like vacuum cleaners, coffee grinders, loud TVs, and things like that be muffled, but you definitely won't hear them full blast. Carrying on a conversation with somebody, you're definitely going to have to pop them out, or else they'll sound like they're underwater. And then the outside isolation is good. Only louder vehicles was I able to really hear as I was going around the neighborhood. Comfort was pretty good. I was able to wear them for several hours on without any discomfort. The weight of them can get a little heavy, so if you're sensitive to heavier IEMs or aggressive nozzles, these could be a problem. But for me, they fit very well and were rather comfortable. The cable's very nice, connects with 2-pin, has well-controlled ear hooks, and then has a nice metal split with a cinch that works. Very nicely twisted, and terminates into a 3.5. Overall, I like this cable. It's well built, and it looks cool. It's got this little sparkly type of look to it, and it's just a nice cable. So overall, the build of the Simgot EA1000 really fits the price point of $220. It does feel worth its price and its build and design and its comfort. The Simgot EA1000's filters. So you get that little extra tray that has the gold, the black, and then the red are pre-installed. the filters definitely do make a difference. And I noticed that two of them sound somewhat similar and then one sounds completely different. So the black and the red are kind of similar. The red one is the one that comes pre-installed, and that is actually my preference one. I found that the red one had a vibrant presentation, but it was also the most tolerable and wasn't as aggressive. It had a little bit more treble extension and a little bit more air. You put the black ones on, and the black filter was a little bit more forthright in its presentation, especially in the upper, mids, and lower treble. And the bass got a little bit more extension and had a little bit better texture. And overall, it had a little bit less treble extension up top and a little bit less air, and it was a little bit warmer. I enjoyed both the red and the black filters, but I preferred the red just a little bit more, just because of the little bit more air and space that you got up top, and also not quite being as forthright in its presentation. The gold ones were slightly different. It was kind of like it was the other two, the sunshine was out and it was a nice bright day. The gold ones, it was kind of partly cloudy. And even though with the gold ones you get a little more fuller mid presentation, they are also the tamest presentation. And it also has a little bit less of detail retrieval, and it just seems a little bit murky up top, and you don't get quite as much air. And overall, it just kind of sounds like it's kind of a little bit too laid back and a little bit too warm of a presentation. So I preferred the red. Black was right up there, very close to the red, and then the gold was kind of like, nah, no thanks, not really my thing. The EA1000 is fairly easy to drive, being 16 ohms, 127 decibels of sensitivity. It is slightly picky though on source. I found that pretty much any of my dongles, DAPs, and desktop ran it with no problems whatsoever. Even the lower powered devices were able to really drive the EA1000 very easily. Where it was a little bit picky was on the type of presentation it had. If a source was a little bit on the warmer side, the EA1000 sounded slightly better. Added in a little bit of body and also kind of tamed the tendencies of sibilance and hotness up top. If you put it on a more colder, sterile, analytical leaning source, they became a little bit more fatiguing, a little bit more forthright, and also at times it could just be a little too much sibilance, a little bit too much hotness. The EA1000 also tends to be a little bit sensitive when it comes to output impedance, and some devices made them hiss. So how do the EA1000s sound? So the EA1000's bass is very much a fun and engaging type of sound signature. The bass has a lot of impact and slam in the mid bass, and the upper bass is slightly thinner and not as engaging as the mid bass. Sub bass also does not extend as well into the sub bass as it should. It kind of is there, and you get a little bit of rumble and grumble. Add in the black filter and that changes. You get more rumble and grumble down in the sub bass, and the mid bass gets a little bit more body and a little bit more impact, and it gets better textured. So if you like bass, I would recommend using a black filter. If you want it to be a little bit more controlled and a little bit leaner, so to speak, the red filter. But the tonality is good. It has nice tone, good timbre, detail retrieval and resolution is good throughout, and it stays well controlled. It just depends on, do you want a little bit more rumble and grumble and a little bit more sub bass impact and a little bit more forthrightness and authority in the sound, go with the black filter. If you want it to be a little bit more about the quality and the details and not as impactful, go with the red filter. The mids. The mids of the EA1000 are slightly a mixed bag. Lower mids are a little bit thin, and male vocals and instruments that reside down in the lower mids can sound a little bit thin and a little bit behind everything else. Main mids and upper mids are more prominent, The upper mids definitely are more elevated, and it depends on which filter that you use. The gold and the black filters will push the mids more forward and will cause those upper mids to become a little bit more shouty. The black ones especially will make those upper mids become shouty and forthright, and also you'll notice more sibilance with the black filter. Gold filter, they will be more forward, but they're also a little bit more tamer. The upper mids can throw off the tonality slightly, and so because it's a little bit thinner in the lower mids, and then the mid mids have nice body to it, and the upper mids are a little elevated, they kind of thin out. And so as you go through the octaves of various instruments, anything from woodwinds, the brass, the piano, it'll sound a little bit uneven, and it'll sound a little bit thin, a little bit accurate, and then a little bit thin, and it'll start going into a little bit of metallic tonality in the upper mids region. It's not off-putting, but at times it can be a little bit distracting depending on what type of music that you're listening to. Treble. So lower treble is more elevated than the rest of the treble, except for on the red filter. In the red filter, you get a little bit more from about 12K on, so a little bit more elevated, and you get a little bit more air in space. The treble has a nice amount of sparkle and energy. At times, it can be a little bit too much in that lower treble region. It is slightly elevated, and it can be prone to hotness, but it has good air, good space, and overall the tonality is nice. That lower treble region though can be, just like the upper mids, slightly unnatural at times because of its elevation. It tends to be a little bit thinner, and things can sound a little bit sheeny and a little bit metallic. The soundstage of the EA1000 is average width. It's not going to amaze you with its width, and at times it can sound a little bit small. It doesn't go into cramped mode, and it's not intimate comfy, but it's close to it. It's just kind of average. It doesn't really ever expand out and show off its grandness. It does a good job though with its imaging within its width. Unfortunately, the depth isn't very deep. It's only a couple rows deep, and you really can't look into a stage very far. So that limits some of the layering capabilities of the EA1000. It does good for the space that it's in, but it's kind of small and a little bit shallow. You can see in a couple rows behind, but when it becomes like more complex track or a very detailed track, things will start to kind of compress in on each other and crowd each other and compete for the space, and things will kind of mix together, and it'll become a little bit muddled and jumbled. But it's not a super annoying and frustrating thing, because it doesn't happen all the time. But when it does, you're kind of like left in a kind of a disappointment with the soundstage. But the imaging and the placement is very good within its stage. You can really track things across the stage, and you can go, it's right there, it's right there. It's very pinpoint in its placement. I just wish that I had more room to be able to expand that and be able to really shine and go, here you go, here's the whole stage, instead of kind of hiding things behind each other. Tone and timbre. The tone is fairly close to natural. It's at times a little bit metallic. It does have a little bit thin of a note weight, and it is too elevated in the uppers, and it can throw off the tonality. Timbre can also become slightly metallic at times as well, especially with percussions, brass, and woodwind instruments. There's a little bit too much energy, and it can be a little bit too vivid at times in its presentation as well. Detail retrieval is very good for its price point, and you're not going to be missing anything. Resolution is actually really good, and I was rather impressed with the resolution capabilities of the EA1000. Now, the EA1000, also, you can put a different cable on it, and Simgot sent over their LC7 cable, and this cable is a little bit thicker, a little bit nicer built than the stock cable of the EA1000, and I like this cable a lot. It does also have the modular termination, so you can use a 3.5 or a 4.4, which is a nice touch. And I find that with this cable, the EA1000 kind of got a little bit better in some of those treble areas. So the little bit extra excitement in the mids and in the treble that added in sibilance and hotness kind of tamed down a little bit, and the resolution kind of got slightly better, and the soundstage opened up just a little bit more, and you got a little bit more depth. And so overall, I found that the EA1000 performs slightly better with the LC7 cable, which costs $90. So if you want to upgrade the cable, it does seem that the EA1000 will play along and scale. I found that the EA1000 does better on slightly warmer sources with a good resolving source, and that it also sounds best with certain genres of music. Genres of music that I enjoyed it with were modern rock, progressive country, pop, dance, electronic, and R&B. Some genres that it was okay with, but weren't it's at its best, and some of them were just not very good at all, were jazz, classical, progressive jazz, progressive classical, metal, progressive metal, acoustical, and classic country. It would do okay with those, but at times some of the songs were just unlistenable and I ended up skipping them. How does the Simgot EA1000 compare to a couple of its competition in similar price points? Well, first of all, you have the Moondrop Kato, and the Kato is more cohesive and it's more natural in its tone and timbre, has better stage depth and layering. The EA1000 is a little bit brighter, it's a little bit more expressive, and it has slightly better detail retrieval, and it has similar resolution to the Kato, or Kato, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And then you have the Tanchjim Kara, and the Tanchjim Kara is a lot harder to drive. It is more source picky. The Kara has more natural tone and timbre, has a better stage depth and layering, and it has better detail retrieval and resolution. The EA1000 is more expressive and a little bit more fatiguing. So overall, I like the Simgot EA1000, and to date, of all the Simgots that I've heard and reviewed, the Simgot EA1000 is my favorite, and I would still take the Tanchjim Kara and the Moondrop Kato over it. So the EA1000 does a lot of things good, and it's fun to listen to. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you contact channel, follow channel, support channel. All the kind of stuff is listed down below. Speaking of supporting the channel, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide to the channel. It is much appreciated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, there's various ways that you can do that through one-time gifts with PayPal and Venmo, or you can do monthly subscriptions with Patreon and YouTube memberships, where you can also get extra benefits like early access to videos, and also you can get access to my private Discord server. If you're interested in supporting the channel, it'd be much appreciated. Check out also the links down below for all kinds of other information like music recommendations, gear recommendations, and all kinds of other things down below. So check out the links below. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.